Nina came home from the clinic and leaned tiredly against the door jamb. Screams were coming from her son's room. Victor and Rita were arguing again, and Nina couldn't understand what they were sharing. They had been married only 5 years, and at first everything had been fine. But then it was as if someone had jinxed them. "Ah, you have completely stopped caring for me," Victor shouted at his wife. "I've already forgotten when there were fresh shirts in the wardrobe. I'm not even talking about socks. So keep quiet." Rita did not yield to her husband's shouting either. "You have hands, you can cook everything yourself. And I'm not your maid. I'm a beautiful woman, and I want attention." "Ah, before you demand attention from a man, you should feed him. When was the last time you touched the pots, you beautiful woman? Aren't you ashamed of yourself? Your mother's sick and she's at the cooker, and you paint your nails. You run to the table ahead of everyone else. Please, I can cook for myself separately, especially since your mum is such a cook. How many times have I told her in what proportions to cook rice, but it's no use. Every time she serves some mushy mush on the table. She's used to feeding pigs in her village." "Shut your mouth, you shameless bitch." Victor couldn't take it anymore. "You should carry my mother in your arms. I don't have to do anything, neither you nor your mummy." Nina went to her room, lay down on the sofa, covered her ears with a pillow. What an unscrupulous Rita! She had imposed such a witch on Victor's head. How much hatred in this woman! A few years ago, Nina and her son lived in a small village. Victor was dating a nice girl named Masha, and everything seemed to be fine with them. But one day, Margarita, the niece of a local businessman, came to the village. The cheeky girl chose Victor, Nina's son, out of all the guys, and she did everything she could to break him and Masha up. "Aunt Nina," Maria cried, "why is he doing this to me? You know how much I love him." "What did he do, Masha?" "He went with that Ritka to the river. I told him, I asked him not to go with her, but he just laughed and said there was nothing to be afraid of, that he's just friends with her. But she doesn't know how to be friends. She wants to take him away from me," sobbed the girl. "Huh, Masha, but maybe you're getting upset for nothing. Victor is a serious guy and nothing can happen between them," said upset Nina. "And after all, Rita came here for a short time. She will leave soon, and everything will be the same between you and Vitya." "Aunt Nina, you don't understand. People like Margarita won't miss out. They're used to doing what they want, and they don't care about the people around them. She doesn't really want Victor. She doesn't love him. She loves only herself." Many times later, Nina remembered Maria's words and wondered how that girl was able to figure out Margarita so quickly. Relationship between Rita and Victor started very quickly. He told his mother that he was getting married. "My God, Vitya, what about Masha?" "Mum, Masha's staying here and I'm going to town with Rita." "And me?" Nina asked with a sinking heart. "I'm not leaving you. How could you think that, Mum? You're going to live with me and Rita knows it. She doesn't mind. She likes you. I'm sure you two will be friends." God willing, son," sighed Nina. Many times she tried to find a common language with her daughter-in-law, but she could not succeed. Rita did not want to get used to the new conditions of her life. She generally, from marriage, expected something else, and now suddenly she, always free and independent, had to be attached to her family. Well, Victor, at least he was a husband, but his mum just pissed the girl off. Open and trusting Nina tried to live and communicate in the city as she was used to in the village, and this caused Margarita's fury. She was ashamed of her mother-in-law and spoke openly about it. The rift between the women could not help but affect Victor. He was very worried that he had made his mother, whom he loved very much, unhappy. Victor was not a mama's boy. He understood how hard it was for her to bring him up alone. He saw that she didn't eat enough and didn't sleep enough, just so that he would have everything, not worse than people. At night, Nina sewed to order, sometimes falling asleep over an old sewing machine. Then Victor, still just a boy, would come and help her to the sofa. How could he leave her now, sick, with weakened eyesight and broken joints? But Rita did not want to understand anything, and Victor finally saw what she really was. Now, Victor was often away on business, explaining his absence from home by business trips. "Son, I don't understand what's going on," Nina asked with tears in her voice. "You're not here. Rita packs up and goes wherever she wants. What kind of family do you have? I was so hoping that one day you would have children. I would be the happiest grandmother in the world. I would love my grandchildren, help you bring them up. But you don't seem to have any time for children. Mummy, darling, I promise you, you're going to be a grandmother soon, and when I get back from my business trip, we'll sit down and we'll talk about everything. Okay? Now don't worry, sweetheart. I have to run, but I'll be back soon." Victor did not keep his promise. The next morning after he left, Margarita received a call from the police saying that her husband had been killed in a car accident and that she needed to come to identify his body. Rita, who called? What did they tell you?" Nina shook her pale daughter-in-law. "We have to go to the morgue for identification. Victor is dead." Vitya couldn't. He promised to come soon. But looking at Margarita's face, the woman suddenly gasped and collapsed at her sister-in-law's feet. All the rest of the days were filled with despair and sobbing. Relatives and friends did not move away from Margarita, sympathizing with the young widow, but about Nina, as if everyone forgot. No one even wanted to talk to her, and the woman froze in her grief. "Look at her, a mother," the neighbours whispered among themselves. If only she had shed a single tear, and it was as if she did not understand where her son had disappeared to, and why there were so many people in the flat. The funeral passed for Nina as in a fog, and then one day Margarita told Nina to get out of her flat. "Rita, my son bought this flat. He sold our house so you wouldn't need anything. So, now I have to live here with you. I don't need anything, and I don't need you first of all. So go ahead and get on with it." "What have I done to you, Rita? Why do you oppress me and look at me like a wolf?" "Because your son and I were already planning to get a divorce. We didn't have time. I'm getting married soon. I have a good guy in mind, not like Vitya the loser." "How come? It's only been a month." "Yeah, I never said I'd go to a convent. Tonight Nikolai will be here, so if you don't want to watch our love affairs, pack your bags and get out of here." Old man Kuzmich, a former neighbour of Nina and Victor, was sitting on a bench outside the house when he saw Nina. She was walking along the path with her head down low. Kuzmich even stood up in surprise. "Well, Nina Petrovna, what are you doing here, my dear?" "Oh, Vanechka, don't ask me. My daughter-in-law threw me out of the house." "What do you mean, kicked you out? What's Victor looking at?" "Vanya, Vanechka, you don't know anything." The unhappy woman was in tears. "My Vitya is gone. He died in an accident. He went on a business trip and didn't come back. And my daughter-in-law, who had hardly had time to bury her husband, went off with another man. That's how it is, Vanechka. I have nowhere else to live, so I came here to go to the cemetery to see all my relatives. Then I'll go to town again. I'll apply for a nursing home." "You're crazy, Nina. There's nothing to make up. My little house is small, but there's enough room for us. You'll get your pension back here, and we'll live together. How could I leave you in distress? We've lived side by side for so many years." "Well, thank you, Kuzmich. You know me, I'll thank you. I'll take your gratitude in pies. You bake them so well." Nina smiled sadly, and then followed Ivan Kuzmich to get settled in her new place. A few days passed. One day there was a knock at Kuzmich's house. Nina opened the door and shrieked with joy. On the threshold stood Masha, Victor's former fiancée. She was holding a little girl in her arms. "Hello, Nina Petrovna. I came to see you. How are you? I heard you live here with Ivan Kuzmich now? Come in, Masha. And don't keep your beauty out in the cold. How can I have business? After Vitya's death, everything's fallen out of favour." "Yes, I heard. I couldn't believe it for a long time, but I had to. You know, Aunt Nina, how much I loved him." "I know, Mashenka, I know. I forgave him everything, and I accepted him. 2 years ago he came to see me for the first time, said he'd made a mistake and was very sorry. One more thing, Aunt Nina, Alyonka is your granddaughter. We've been seeing a lot of Vitya lately. He was getting a divorce, and I hoped we'd be together soon. And if it hadn't been for that accident..." Nina splashed her hands and cried with happiness. She could not believe that in such a difficult moment 2 people had reached out to her at once, and what a happiness it was to know that Vitya had left behind a daughter, a continuation of his family, a part of himself. "My God, my girl. I've come for you. We're not strangers. It's not right that you're going to live with Ivan Kuzmich. Come to our place." Nina hugged the girl. "My darling, my joy, what a good girl you are. I will always love you, and my granddaughter Alyonushka too." From that day on, Nina moved in with Masha and Alyonka. She was happy that she could be near her nearest and dearest people. One day, Nina received a call from the pension department. "Nina Petrovna, please explain why the notary cannot find you. You need to contact him urgently and get your son's will." "What will?" asked a stunned Nina. "I don't know anything about any will. To whom and what could my son bequeath?" "Please call the phone number we'll give you now." Nina called the notary back and then rushed to Masha. "My girl, do you know what I just found out? Vitya signed his city flat over to Alyonushka shortly before his death. And it's a good thing the flat was registered to him before the wedding, so Rita's consent wasn't required. That's why she didn't know anything. Masha, I'm so happy. Get ready. We have to meet the notary. He's expecting us at 3:30. Now we'll have Ritka dancing." When all the documents were in hand, Nina and Masha arrived in town. At first, Rita didn't understand what they wanted, and then she shouted, "You can't evict me from here. You have no right." "But the court does," said Nina calmly. "And I'll tell you what, my dear, in a few hours will come our car with things, and you quickly pack your things and get out of here. Isn't that what you told me?" "What do you think you're doing, you old fool?" Margarita habitually shouted. But then Masha stepped forward. "If you allow yourself to insult Nina Petrovna again, you'll have to deal with me. Do you understand, bitch?" Rita stopped talking and stepped aside. And 2 hours later, taking one last look at the house where she planned to stay for many years, went away. Nicholas had abandoned her, unwilling to provide, and lately Rita had been on the lookout. And now she had to look not for a man, but for a place to live. The girl cursed everyone who prevented her from becoming truly happy, and did not realize that she did not deserve it at all.